Geometry 1, Chapter 2 Test, Skill 4. Be able to provide a counterexample to basic statements. A counterexample is one instant where the statement is not actually true. It just needs to be one. You don't have to list a whole bunch of them. One counterexample is sufficient to show that a statement is actually false. So the example here. Provide a counterexample to each of the following. Part A. All names contain the letter A. So what we have to do here is find a name that does not contain the letter A. So think for just a moment. I usually check my own name first. Unfortunately, my first name does contain the letter A, so that won't work. Then I oftentimes think of people I know, and lo and behold, I actually know someone who has a name, and the name does not contain the letter A, and the name is Ben. And Ben is a counterexample because it does not contain an A. Now, the explanation isn't necessarily needed unless it says something like, explain how you know this is a counterexample. This is a counterexample because Ben is a name and it does not contain an A. Now, oftentimes, though, when we're talking about counterexamples, all names contain the letter A. That's great, but that statement alone is not very mathematical. So oftentimes we actually have math statements like adding two numbers results in a larger answer. So for example, what this means is 3 plus 5 is 8, and 8 is larger than both 3 and 5. So what you need to do is find an example, just one, where you're adding two numbers and the result, the answer, is not larger than both of the original numbers that you added. So take a moment and think, what could we do? What could we add that does not make the number bigger? Well, what if we added 1? 3 plus 1. Well, that's 4. And again, 4 is bigger than 3 and 1. So that doesn't work. What happens if you add 0, though? 3 plus 0 equals 3. Is the answer larger than both of the original numbers? Well, when you add 0, it doesn't change your answer at all. That's the additive identity. 3 plus 0 equals 3. It doesn't change the number that you added. So this is actually a counterexample. 3 and 0 is a counterexample because 3 plus 0 equals 3, and 3 is not larger than 3. Now when we say larger, we actually mean bigger. It cannot be the same, it cannot be equal. Another counterexample, if you were interested in one, would be 3 plus negative 1 equals 2. Here the answer is actually smaller than the 3, so here would be another counterexample. But again, for counterexamples, you only need one. Once you find one, I suggest you double check and make sure it actually makes the statement false. And then move on. No need to come up with any more.